6 years ago, my sister walked away with a man I thought I would spend my life with. She wore my dream wedding dress, moved into the mansion I was supposed to call home, and smiled like she had won the biggest prize in the world. I disappeared quietly, carrying a heartbreak nobody in my family understood. But at my mother's funeral, everything changed. My sister arrived holding the same man's hand, showing off her diamond ring like a trophy. She looked at me and said, "Still alone?" Then I smiled and called someone over. When she saw him, her entire world stopped. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 38 years old, and for most of my life, I believed my sister, and I shared a bond that nothing could break. We grew up in a small town where everyone knew our family, and from the outside, we looked like the perfect sisters. She was the outgoing one, the person who could walk into any room and instantly become the center of attention. I was quieter, the one who noticed details and valued loyalty more than popularity. When I met Daniel, everything changed. He was successful, kind, and incredibly patient. He had built a $1 million company from nothing, but what impressed me most was that he never acted like money made him better than anyone else. He made me feel seen. For the first time, I believed I had found someone who loved me exactly as I was. My sister was excited when I introduced them. At least, that was what I thought. She complimented his confidence, his lifestyle, and the way he treated me. But slowly, I started noticing something strange. She asked questions about our relationship that felt too personal. She wanted to know about our plans, our future home, even the details of my engagement ring. I ignored the warning signs because she was my sister. I trusted her completely. But one evening, I walked into my sister's house unexpectedly and saw something that made my heart stop. The person she was sitting with wasn't just anyone. It was Daniel, my fiancé, the man I was supposed to marry. I remember standing there, frozen, trying to convince myself that I was misunderstanding what I was seeing. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe Daniel was there for a business reason. Maybe my sister had invited him over for something innocent. But deep down, I already knew. The look on their faces told me everything. Daniel didn't look surprised to see me. That was the part that hurt the most. He looked guilty, but not shocked. Like he had already accepted that this moment would come eventually. My sister was the first one to speak. She didn't apologize. She didn't cry. She simply said that she and Daniel had developed feelings for each other and that they never planned for it to happen. I wanted to ask how something like that just happened. How two people I trusted could make choices that destroyed my entire future. But the hardest part came later, when my family found out. Instead of standing beside me, my mother told me I needed to be mature and accept the situation. She said Daniel and my sister were happy, and maybe it was better to let them move forward. Those words broke something inside me. The people who should have protected my heart were asking me to ignore the betrayal because it was easier for everyone else. I realized that fighting for Daniel would mean fighting for someone who had already chosen another person. So I packed my things, ended the engagement, and walked away. That night, I made myself a promise. I would not spend the rest of my life begging people to choose me. If they wanted to leave, I would let them. Leaving my hometown was the hardest decision I had ever made, but it was also the beginning of the life I never thought I deserved. I moved to another state with 2 suitcases, a broken heart, and no clear plan for what came next. The first few months were painful. Every street reminded me of what I had lost. Every happy couple I saw made me remember the future I thought I would have with Daniel. But slowly, I started putting the pieces of myself back together. I focused on my career, my goals, and the person I wanted to become. I worked harder than ever before and eventually built a successful design business that gave me independence and confidence. For the first time, my achievements belonged only to me. Years passed, and the pain became a memory instead of a wound. Then I met Michael. He was nothing like Daniel. He didn't impress people with money or status. He impressed me with kindness, patience, and the way he listened when I spoke. He loved the quiet parts of me that my sister had always ignored. When I told him about my past, he didn't judge me. He simply said, "You didn't lose the right person. You lost someone who didn't know your value." I never checked my sister's life anymore, but occasionally I saw pictures online. The mansion, the expensive vacations, the perfect-looking marriage. And honestly, I felt nothing. I had finally learned that someone else winning your old dream doesn't mean you lost. But then, 6 years later, I received a phone call that forced me to return home. My mother had passed away. Walking back into my hometown after 6 years felt like stepping into a chapter of my life I had worked so hard to close. Every familiar street carried memories I thought I had already buried. The old coffee shop where Daniel and I used to meet. The road leading to my childhood home. Places that once felt comforting now felt like reminders of everything I had survived. My mother's funeral was quiet and emotional. I wasn't there to reopen old wounds. I was there to say goodbye and find some kind of closure. Several relatives approached me, surprised to see how much I had changed. They remembered the woman who left town heartbroken, but they were meeting someone completely different. Then the doors opened, and there she was. My sister walked in wearing a designer dress, holding Daniel's hand like they were arriving at a celebration instead of a funeral. The same man who once promised me forever was now standing beside the person who had taken my place. Around her finger was a massive diamond ring. She noticed me immediately and smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the same confident expression she had worn 6 years earlier when she thought she had won. She walked toward me slowly and looked me up and down. "Well," she said, glancing at my empty hand, "I guess some things never change." Still alone at 38. A few people nearby went silent. 6 years ago, those words would have destroyed me. But this time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel jealousy. I simply smiled, because for the first time I knew something she didn't. She thought she had taken my future. She had no idea what my future actually looked like. But I would rebuild everything they thought they had taken from me. I looked at my sister standing there, waiting for me to react. She expected anger. She expected jealousy. She expected to see the same broken woman who had walked away 6 years earlier. But she didn't know the person I had become. I turned around and looked toward the entrance of the room. "Actually," I said calmly, "there is someone you should meet." A few seconds later, Michael walked toward me. The moment he placed his hand gently on my shoulder, I saw the confusion on my sister's face. She looked at him, then at me, as if she was trying to understand something that didn't make sense. This was not the man she expected. Michael wasn't someone who needed to prove his success. He carried himself with quiet confidence. He had built a successful technology company, but what mattered most to me was the way he treated people when nobody was watching. He wasn't impressed by appearances. He wasn't interested in winning against anyone. He simply loved me. I introduced him as my husband. The smile on my sister's face disappeared instantly. Daniel looked away, and for the first time, I saw something I never expected to see from him: regret. My sister had spent 6 years believing she had won because she got the wealthy fiancé, the beautiful house, and the lifestyle everyone admired. But standing there, she finally saw the truth. She had taken something I had already outgrown. I didn't lose Daniel. I lost someone who was never meant to stay. And in return, I found a man who chose me every single day. My sister stared at Michael silently before finally asking the question she couldn't hold back. "Who exactly is he?" For a moment, nobody said anything. The room was filled with the kind of silence that happens when people realize the story they believed for years was never the complete truth. My sister looked at Michael, then back at me. She wanted to understand how the person she thought she had defeated had somehow built a life she could never imagine. But I wasn't interested in making her feel small, because I had learned something important during those 6 years. Healing does not come from watching someone else suffer. It comes from no longer needing their pain to prove your worth. Later that evening, my sister asked to speak with me privately. For the first time in years, the confidence in her voice was gone. She admitted that her life with Daniel was not as perfect as everyone thought. The money, the house, and the luxury looked impressive from the outside, but inside their marriage, things had slowly fallen apart. She told me Daniel often talked about the choices he had made and the life he walked away from. I listened quietly. The old Emily would have felt satisfaction hearing that. But the woman standing there now only felt sadness. I told her, "I hope you find peace, but I need you to understand something. What happened between us changed me forever." She lowered her eyes. For the first time, my sister understood that she didn't just take my fiancé. She damaged a relationship between two sisters that could never return to what it was. I forgave her. But forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. And it didn't mean letting her back into my life the way things were before. Looking back now, I realized the moment I thought my life was ending was actually the moment it was beginning. 6 years ago, I believed my sister had taken everything from me. She took the man I loved, the future I imagined, and the family support I thought I could always depend on. But she didn't take my future. She unknowingly pushed me toward it. Because losing Daniel forced me to discover my own strength. Walking away from my family forced me to build a life based on my own choices. And meeting Michael showed me what real love was supposed to feel like. Love is not a competition. It is not about who has the bigger house, the more expensive ring, or the most impressive lifestyle. Real love is choosing someone every day, even when nobody is watching. At my mother's funeral, my sister thought she was looking at the woman she had defeated. But she was actually looking at the woman who had finally found herself. And that was the greatest victory I could ever have.